So the subjunctive mood is different because it doesn't use any kind of modal, not even a wannabe modal like the word do. So let's talk about what this is, and this is really important. So with the subjunctive mood, you have to read the sentence carefully to discern if its structure, if the sentence structure is one of the three possible subjunctive structures. So capture these three structures down. The first one is this: when an if clause expresses a condition that's contrary to a fact, you'll use the verb were, regardless of the subject. So what I mean is, if I'm going to use the word if, and what I'm stating is not really factual, I get to use the word were. If it were up to me, there would be a coffee and donut buffet in the back of my classroom. Well, instead of saying if it was up to me, I say if it were up to me, because it's not up to me. If I were you, I would avoid Mr. Doherty because of his contagious case of elbow stink. Well, I'm not you, so I wouldn't say if I was you because I'm not you. So therefore, that's not factual. I'm not you and you're not me. So I say if I were you. Only if the sky were to snow in July would I ever eat tofu. I wouldn't say if only the sky was to snow, because the sky is not going to snow. It's not factual that it's going to snow in July. So therefore, I get to use the word were. It's contrary to fact. That's structure number one. So if someone says, hey, if I were you, I'd watch my speed limit. Well, I'm not you. If someone said, if I were you, I would watch for PETA protesters with red paint. I'm not you. So therefore, we can see that use of the subjunctive. Next structure. If the if clause creates a wish, then you're going to use the verb were again. So 2 times you get to use the word were with an if clause. This time is if it's a wish. If she were allowed, my daughter would eat gummies and drink chocolate milk for breakfast. She's not allowed, but if she were allowed. So you notice how I didn't say if she was allowed? Because it's a wish. I wish I were able to see the future to determine if this is important to my life. It is important. You can see the future. I'm telling you, I'm there. I'm from the future. So you'd say, if I were able, I wish I were able, instead of saying, I wish I was able, because you're not. It's not possible, but here it's a wish. Once again, we get to use that word were. If I were the winner of Powerball, I would quit teaching and tour the NASCAR circuit in an RV. Once again, it's a wish. I'm not sure it's really my wish, but it's a wish. And therefore, we get to use the word were, regardless of the subject. The third structure. Oh, sorry, Wonder Woman, or Superwoman, or whoever you are. So if she said, sometimes I wish I were not a superhero. All right, there we go. Mediocre barista. Why not? Here's our third structure. When we use a that clause, a little structure with the word that, and it expresses a very strong suggestion, you're going to use the base or the infinitive form of a verb. We're not going to conjugate the verb. Let me show you what I mean. We suggested that Bo rethink his promposal, that's hard for me to say, his promposal idea for Jenna. Well, in this case, normally you would say Bo rethinks his promposal, but I didn't conjugate the verb because it's Bo rethink. No one ever say, hey, Bo rethink. You'd say Bo rethinks, but I'm not going to conjugate the verb because I'm suggesting something, and I'm using that word that. If I said, Cyan insisted that Eric put his shoes outside to air out. Well, I didn't say Cyan insisted that Eric puts his shoes outside, but Eric put his shoes. She's insisting something with that word that, and it's a very strong suggestion, so I'm not going to conjugate the verb put. I move that the meeting be adjourned. Let me bring up my little highlighter here. This one's usually the easiest one to see because rethink's kind of a verb you can say, hey, they rethink, or they put. It's weird to say that Bo rethink or Eric puts. You'd say Eric puts and Bo rethinks. Be is a little obvious. Be, you can definitely tell that the verb be has not been conjugated. It's not the verb is or are. Like they've kept it in its infinitive or its original, what we call the infinitive form. And once again, I'm making a suggestion. I move that the meeting not is adjourned, but be adjourned. Lastly, the school nurse recommended that Jackson go home. We didn't say Jackson goes home, but Jackson, base verb, go home. And these are all examples of the subjunctive mood. So if I said propose, yes, I propose that this relationship is terminated. You'd say this relationship be terminated. All right. And that's how we use the subjunctive mood. So it does seem easy. I know, giddy man, but it's not always. All right. There are still going to be some if and that clauses that we write that are not really subjunctive. It's a little tricky. So let's take a look at some tricky imposters that you can come across. Let me show you what I mean. This is tough. If I said, if it were anything but soccer on TV, I'd be fine. So can we keep flipping through the channels? That sounds subjunctive, doesn't it? It has that word if in there. But think about it. If it were anything but soccer on TV, well, there's obviously other things on than soccer. So in this case, it's not contrary to the fact there are other things on. So it's not unfactual. So you should say if it was anything but soccer on TV, because it's possible. And therefore you get to use the word was. If I said, I say that Uncle Joe stay with us while he's in town. Well, yeah, you're saying that and you're using the word that, but you didn't say I suggest or I demand or I command or I declare that Uncle Joe stay with us. You're just saying I say that Uncle Joe. And saying is not really that strong of a statement. So therefore, I say that Uncle Joe stays with us. I don't need to use the base form. So there's a couple of imposters that are floating around. But what I really want to focus on is making sure you understand the 3 cases in which we would use the subjunctive mood and making sure that we recognize those. So hopefully you're no longer in a subjunctive mood, but maybe, or if you are, hopefully you're feeling better. Don't cry. Oh my God, look at this guy. All right, get over yourself, sir. That's all, everybody. We're going to practice these on a worksheet now. See if we can kind of apply some of this.